Good evening. Oh, good evening. How is everybody tonight? Good. Well, I'm Elizabeth Costello. I have the honor of serving as the Director of Admission here at the University of Central Florida, and it is always a pleasure to do this particular program especially because I'm in front of friendly faces and lots of knights and alums and hopefully future alums and future knights. So it is it always is a great opportunity for me to speak to you because it's kind of giving you an idea of a little bit about the college admissions process, which I know can be a little bit nerve-wracking. Like I said, we're in a friendly space, and I'm going to leave opportunities for you to ask questions. So hopefully along the way, we'll take a little bit of the anxiety out of the whole process for you. I've been at UCF this is my 19th year here. So I unfortunately did not graduate from here, but I feel after 19 years, I become an honorary knight, so I hope you all agree with that. First, let me start off a little bit and kind of get a feel for who's in the audience. How many of the students are in the audience are currently in middle school? How many of you are currently in high school? I'll go through the grades. How about 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th, 12th? Great, so it's a big selection across. So I'm going to try to be as general as possible, but give you as much information that I think will be helpful. It's not simply talking about UCF, although that's kind of hard sometimes to talk about other things other than UCF, but this will give you hopefully a good idea of the entire search process and the college admissions process that hopefully will be helpful to you. I'll be throwing some UCF things in, of course, but it will give you hopefully a good idea of what it's like to go through the college search process, what college they're looking for. How many of you students that are out here today, how many of you are a little anxious about the college process? And if you don't raise your hand, you're lying. Okay. How many parents are a little anxious about the college? See, that's more what I was thinking about. So that is okay. It's definitely okay to be a little anxious about it. It can be overwhelming, and there's a lot to think about, but definitely try to take the stress down as much as possible because it can be fun too. There is a brochure that should have been on your table too. This is about UCF, but it's also about the general search process too. It kind of goes as a roadmap from 9th through 10th, 11th, 12th grade. Things you should be doing. We're going to talk about it during the session, but just so you have this when you go home, you can look at that as well, because it's a really good piece to kind of know where you're going and be able to kind of get a good idea of where you should be in the following year and beyond. We are really lucky here in the state of Florida. We have 12 state universities that are phenomenal. You can get any kind of education in Florida. I believe you can get a great education at any of these institutions. We have small schools, large schools, metropolitan schools, rural schools, schools that are right here, if you're from Orlando, right here in Orlando, up through Pensacola, which is about 7 or 8 hours away. So there's a lot of options if you want to stay close to home, if you want to go away. But there's a lot of different options here, and I want you to know that they should all be explored because you can stay in the state of Florida at a public institution no matter what kind of school you're looking for. Obviously, I hope you choose UCF, but there's a lot of options. This is all of the websites for all of the institutions. It's also in your packet, so please feel free to look at those and explore those, kind of go over those. There's so many different things at each school that they offer, the majors, the departments, the extracurricular activities are all really, really important to look at, and this is a great way to at least start the process and look at all of those things that are available. And now kind of the meat of the program. College admissions about 20 or 30 years ago was very different than it is today. Very, very different. Only about half of the high school graduates 20 or 30, 40 years ago applied for college. That was the applicant pool. Many actually stayed, either did not go on to post-secondary or went into the military or do other things, but only about half would actually apply to college. And I know it's hard to believe for all of the students in the room, but there was no internet. There was no social media, there was no YouTube, there was no email, there was no any of those online degree programs. None of that was in the landscape. So that is why it's very different than it is right now. Large public universities, the admissions process, many of them operate on an open enrollment, similar to some of the state colleges now, which is more of you had your high school diploma, you took your SATs or your ACTs, and it was more open. Not necessarily that way now. The grid formula was very, very common back then, where it was pretty much if you have this and this, you'd be offered admission into the institution. So there's a little more certainty about the process. Typically, students applied to only 3 to 4 schools. Applications were really the only thing that were required. No additional information was really requested, such as resumes or letters of recommendation or any of those things. So it's really applications and transcripts and test scores were pretty much it. And there were fewer admission deadlines back then. They were a little bit more open. They weren't specifically saying that you have to apply by November 1st in order to be considered for down the road. So there was fewer deadlines then, but times have definitely changed. As I'm sure many of you know if you have older siblings that are going through the process. Admission right now is a pretty competitive environment. How many, just taking a guess, how many institutions do you believe are in the United States? Throw out a number. 4-year institutions. How many? 800, close. Well, a little less than more. 4,000. There's 4,000 institutions out there. I mean, you probably think about 50 or 60 or 70 when you think of institutions, but there are close to 4,000. So there's a lot to look at, a lot to consider. Many of those institutions admit many, many students. So keep that in mind. Don't think that there's a list of 20 schools out there, because that's just not true. The environment today has really grown. Since 1997, the high school population has grown dramatically. In the northeast part of the country, it has declined, but here in the south and in the west, it's grown. Since 2004, between 2004 and 2017, in Florida, we've had a 24% increase in high school graduation numbers. So there was a baby boom at some point in time, and those students are coming through the pipeline now. This coming year, 2019, 3.4 million students will graduate from high school in the United States. And they're saying that 2/3 of them will apply to college. So that's up substantially from where it was 20, 30 years ago, where only half really applied to college. So about 2/3 will look to post-secondary education at some point. That means that the more graduates and more people applying for college will also mean that there's going to be more students going through the admissions process, and it's going to become more competitive. Online applications have helped. A few minutes ago, I mentioned that online applications, or there was no internet, and there was nothing of that sort. It was all paper and pen. Now, online applications are really the only way to apply to colleges now. There's a number of different kinds of applications. The Common Application, which UCF is a member of, 700 or so institutions around the country are members of the Common App. We use that as well as our institutional application. There's also an application called the Coalition Application. The University of Florida uses that exclusively, and a number of other colleges and universities around the country do as well. So there's a lot of different options, but they are all mostly online at this point. There's really, I don't know of any school that offers applications that are paper and pen anymore. And students are applying to more schools. 3 to 4 was the average a few years ago, or 20 or 30 years ago. Now it's about 5 to 10. We have students that are applying to lots and lots of schools. My recommendation is not to go beyond that number, and I think a lot of college counselors that you work with in your high schools will kind of agree with you. We've had students who have said that they've applied to 30, 40 schools. I don't think that's necessary. If you do that, you haven't really done the research to know what's a good fit for you. But 5 to 10 is the average number for students at this point. Many of us do receive more applications than we have room for, and that's what makes it competitive. So that's why it's good to start early, and I'm glad that all of you are here looking early, because it's really important to do that and to make sure that you have done the research early, so in the senior year you can get those applications in and really work through the process and not be behind the 8 ball trying to figure out what you're going to be doing in the spring of your senior year. Universities don't have unlimited space. We try to admit as many students as we can, but we don't have unlimited space, so it's important to definitely be considering all of those things and getting those applications in as early as possible. I think I skipped that one. Okay. I talked right through it. Okay. So what are colleges looking for? This is the important piece anyway. Colleges are looking for a number of things, and they are all listed up here. Some of them are going to be pretty obvious. Strong high school curriculum through 9th through 12th grade, that's going to be key, and that's why it's number one, because that's probably what the vast majority of colleges and universities are looking for, is a strong high school curriculum. Strong grades in those courses. It's no good if you take all these great courses, but you don't do well. That's not going to be a benefit to you. Strong test scores, SATs and ACTs. Now I'm going to talk to the students here. How many of you are excited to take your SATs and your ACTs? Nobody raised their hand. They're important though. You need to take them seriously, but know that most schools are looking at your transcript and your courses and what you've done for 4 years, not just what you've taken on 3-hour tests on a Saturday morning. They're important. Prepare for them. Don't take them lightly and think I can just go in with no preparation. But they're never, I don't believe they're really ever the sole reason a student is admitted or not admitted to an institution. They're important because they're a great predictor of how you'll do on the post-secondary level during your freshman year, but that's kind of where that research ends. The SATs and the ACTs, solid predictor of first year, freshman year in college, not really beyond that. So we do look at them. All of the state universities require them. They are required by our Florida Board of Governors. So you can't attend any of the state universities without them. But don't take them as the most important thing, and don't be stressed out as much as I know a lot of students are about them, because they're important, but they're not the only thing. And the last two things, the demonstrated leadership and engagement in activities. Why is that there? We really feel that when we're creating a class and we're admitting students, we are building a class. We are building a great environment. We're building a great community at the whatever institution that an admissions office is working for, but especially here at UCF. Past predicts your future. So if you were active in high school and you were involved in high school, that's going to tell us that probably you're going to be like that on our campus as well. And we want to make sure that students are involved on our campus, because that's what's going to make this place great. Students who just go to class and then go back to their room and close their door and don't interact with anybody, it's a pretty boring place. If that's what we were doing. So engagement in activities and demonstrated leadership is really, really important. So make sure on your applications that you talk about that. Do your resume and submit that with the application. In the section that says activities, don't just say, well, I'm not going to say that, or that wasn't important, or I'll just abbreviate this word and I'm sure they'll know what it is. Your application is your time to brag about yourself. I won't know you until I look on that application and I can make a really good decision about you as a student, and I can tell that by what you've provided on your application itself. So definitely feel that that's the time for you to let that admissions committee know exactly who you are and what you bring to the institution as a whole. What is a strong academic curriculum? The state of Florida has a lot of requirements for students through our Florida Board of Governors. So there's certain courses you have to take and you have to have completed prior to coming to a state university here in Florida. You have to have 4 years of college prep English. You have to have 4 years of math at the Algebra 1 level or higher. You have to have 3 years of a natural science, 2 of which have to have a lab component, and that's typically going to be your chemistry and your biology, most likely. 3 years of social science will also be extremely important. 2 years of a world language or American Sign Language. They have to be the same language. We usually get a question or two every year where someone's taken French 1 and Spanish 1. That doesn't count. You have to take 2 consecutive sequences. So you have Spanish 1, Spanish 2, French 1, French 2, Latin 1, Latin 2. So that shows a competency at that level. And then 2 college prep courses or academic electives that will come in under one of those others. What does that mean? You love math. You take 4 years of math, but there's more math that you can take. One of those or 2 of those electives can be in the math area, and they'll count as your electives. And that way you can take what you're interested in. You like writing, you want to take extra English, use that as 2 extra courses, or maybe 1 course in English, 1 course in math, so that you can have that those electives taken with things that you're interested in. And then at the bottom, we do weight all of our transcripts. What we do at UCF is we will recalculate a GPA. So we don't look at what's on the transcript, and this is institution specific. So I'm telling you about UCF. Other institutions are going to be different. But what you'll be doing is we'll take your transcript and we'll take all of your academic core courses, and then if you've taken any honors, AP, IB, dual enrollment, ACE, we will bump them up on the grades. Honors is a half a point. The others, AP, IB, ACE, and dual enrollment are a full point. So basically what that means, if you are in an AP class and you get a B, you're going to get a 4.0, or it bumps it up to an A when we recalculate, because we know that they're more difficult courses. We know that you're stretching yourself, and they're important for your preparation when you come to the college campus as well. And that's kind of our way of helping you with your GPA. If I had a dime for every time I was asked the question, should I take a regular course and get an A, or should I take an accelerated course and get a B, which would you prefer? My answer is always, I'd like you to take the accelerated course and get the A. But we do know that it's important for you to take those accelerated courses and get that information. Students that are taking those courses are going to do better when they get onto a college campus. So that's why we recommend them, and that's why we give them weight, because we definitely want that to reflect in your GPA. There we go. Yes. College enrollment, what we're looking for, and that's the other thing. The mystery that people think of is what is this admissions committee considering when they're making their decision? I ask students what they picture what we look like when we're doing it, and they picture that we're sitting in a big room and we're all talking over each other, trying to determine which students we're going to admit. It's a little bit different than that. We are looking at those applications usually at a desk, one-on-one, reading everything, calculating GPAs, reading the essays, looking at all of those things, and we really want to make sure that the student is a good fit. Sometimes we'll have another person look at those applications as well and give a second read to it, because that's important. We definitely want to have, we may not be sure about something, and that's an opportunity. But the biggest thing that we are looking for is we're trying to build a talented and diverse community. Like I mentioned before, we need students from all different backgrounds. We need students who are interested in music and theater and student government and athletics and all of those things. So those are the kind of things that we're doing when we're building that community. We want to recognize special talents, which is another reason why I told you to make sure you tell us those things on your application, because we don't know what your special talent is unless you tell us. We want students who are involved. A question we get a lot sometimes is some students have to work and they aren't able to be involved because they have to have a job after school or on the weekends. And they say, is that harmful for me? Absolutely not. Working, it can be just as valuable as an extracurricular activity that you're doing at school, so tell us about it. If you're working at McDonald's or you're working in a retail environment, explain that. You can learn a lot from work that you've done, and it's really, really important for us to know that, so feel free to put that on your applications. Our college enrollment faculty also say that it's really important for students to be able to write and write well. So we're looking at all of the things that you submit to us, your personal statements that are well written, and not just the content perhaps of the actual statement or the essay itself, but how you wrote it is critical. And the end result, once we look at all of those pieces, the end result is that we have an academically talented and diverse student body, and that's what our goal is at UCF. It's also the goal of any other institution that I've ever worked at, and that my colleagues work at as well, because that is very, very important. As I mentioned, faculty say that they want to have a student that it wants to be here. They say that students of this generation, and I don't know if it's Generation Z or I, and I hear all sorts of different things, but the students that are coming to us now are very, very bright. They're very, very tech savvy, but they're not great writers as a whole. I'm sure nobody in here goes under that category, but they're not great writers. So they want us to be able to, and that's one of the reasons we ask for a personal statement, because not only are you telling us about yourself, you're also showing us how you write. And that's going to be important no matter what major you're in. I've had students tell me that I don't care, I don't need to write well because I'm going to be a biology major, so I will never have to write. And I tell them that they're very wrong. That is not correct. There's really no major you can do that you're not going to need to be a good writer, no matter what field you're going into. So it's important to do now. It's important throughout your high school years to really learn a good writing, to have a really good writing foundation, because it's going to be very, very important in college when you're here. We want to make sure that students have a commitment to learning, student success, and to really understand what's expected of them. It's not 13th grade, and a lot of students kind of feel that it's just the next step. It's really important to make sure that you know that it's a whole different level on a college campus, and really understanding that it's classes are different, study habits have to be different, the commitment has to be different, and that's one of the things that we look for in applications, how students are talking in their personal statements about coming to the university and what's important to them, and those sorts of things. And everybody thinks getting that admission letter is the end game, and I'm all set, everything's good. But it's not. Graduation with your bachelor's degree, that's what we're looking for. If I admit a class and half of my class left between their sophomore and their senior year, I did not do my job well. I'm really here to make sure that students can do well here once they get to our campus and that graduate in 4 years and have their degree and have a great experience. So that's the end game. Graduation is definitely the end game. Things to consider when looking for a college. How many of you have been on a campus tour yet? A few of you have? Great. There's really something, and these are only 5 things, but I think they're important, and there's going to be other things that are going to be important to you, but these 5 are important to, or should be important to everybody. When you're thinking about colleges and kind of narrowing down your list, think about the size of the institution. I have a story that I tell, and it's happened a number of years ago now, but it kind of proves the point. I was speaking with a family, or a student of alums here at UCF, and she was wonderful, and the day she was born, I think they put her in black and gold, which I always love, and she really said, I want to go to UCF, absolutely, no matter what, I want to go to UCF. I talked to her one-on-one, and I asked her how she learned best, and that was one of the questions I ask students a lot, is how do you learn best? What's your learning style? And she said that she really likes working in really small groups. She likes classes with 15 or 20 students. And as she's saying this, I said, well, we are one of the top 5 institutions in the country with 68,000 students. You will have classes that are small, but you won't have all your classes that are small. And she really needed a smaller environment. And that's something that she needs. She always thought she was going to go to this big school, but for her learning style was that she really probably needed a smaller institution, and that's okay. So that's something to think about. How do you learn? What kind of campus do you want to be on? Location. Location is also extremely important. When you are a sophomore or a junior, you may think, I would like to go to school in Seattle. Until a week before you leave Orlando and you're packing up your stuff and you're going to school in Seattle. And you're thinking, I'm going to live across the country and I'm not ready for that. You have to know, or at least think about and do some self-assessment, and think about the things, do I want to be able to be a car ride away? Do I want to live at home? Or do I want to be an airplane ride away? That's going to be important, and those are the things that you have to think about when you're going through the process. Every one of those things are fine. There's no good or bad or right or wrong answer, but you have to know what you are thinking. Do you want to live 6-hour drive? Do you want to live across the country? So think about those things. Degrees and majors that are offered at an institution, that seems kind of basic. However, a lot of times people don't think about that. It's okay to not have your major planned out. That's perfectly okay. 25% of our students come in undecided, so it's not a problem at all. But if you have a pretty good idea of what you want to do, you need to make sure that the school you're looking at has that. I have another story of a student that I worked with pretty closely at one point, and he came to orientation, and he was all excited about orientation, and he asked, I don't understand why none of my groups talked about chemical engineering. And I said, we don't have chemical engineering. And he said, well, I assumed you had engineering, so I assumed you had every engineering. That's not true. So just think about those things. If you have a major you're really thinking about, do the research and make sure that the schools on your list have that degree. Cost. I don't think cost should be a barrier to go to college. There's a lot of funding available through financial aid. There's a lot of scholarships available, but it is a conversation that you have to have as a family. Cost, schools range from, public institutions like us are about $19,000 a year for an in-state student. You can go up to anywhere to $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 at a private institution somewhere. So you just have to have that conversation, and you want to have it early on and not in April when of the senior year when you're making your decision. You don't want to have at that point the conversation of, that's not going to work, I haven't applied anywhere else. So have some options there and have that conversation. Admission requirements are also important. You want to know that what type of applications an institution that you're looking at has. As I mentioned before, there's institutional applications that are individual to the individual school. There is the Common App, there's the Coalition application, so you really want to make sure every school's different. Even schools within the state university system are different, so you really want to make sure that you do research about that. The types of admission, there's many. Here at UCF, we're on rolling admission, and what that means is we start taking applications in August for the following year. We will then start making decisions September 1st, and we make decisions pretty much every day throughout the year until the spring. Other institutions may be on what's called early decision. Early decision means that there's a deadline, usually November 1st, that you have to have everything in. Once that happens, they will have a notification date of when they'll notify all students. So everybody gets their decision on, say, March 1st. There's also an early decision means that you're choosing an institution and saying that if you are admitted there, you will commit to going there. So you can only apply to one institution as early decision. There's also what's called early action, which is similar, but the commitment isn't there that you have to attend if they admit you. All different things, and they seem complicated now, but there's a lot of information on the websites that will talk about it, so absolutely understand those things because deadlines are important, and especially if you're looking at a school that's not rolling admission, those deadlines are definitely going to be key. Ways to prepare for the college admissions process. This is going to be the kind of the meat of the presentation. Every semester in high school counts, which is something that you need to keep in mind. High school is basically 8 total semesters. You get 2 per year for 4 years. We start making decisions anytime after September of the senior year, so we're only looking at 6 or maybe 7 semesters. So people think, oh, it's freshman year, no one will see that. We'll see it, and it counts. So it's important to know that once you start high school, that's the GPA, and those are the grades that colleges and universities will see. A caveat there, we like to see upward trending grades, so if you didn't do so well in freshman year, it's okay, life's not over by any stretch of the imagination. However, it's going to be important for you to have that upward trend. I don't like when I see transcripts that will have all A's in 9th grade and slowly moving down to C's in the junior and senior year. It's really going to be important to have that upward trend, so just keep that in mind. Staying organized with a college admissions binder or a spreadsheet or on your phone or your iPad or anything that's going to be helpful to you. I'm showing my age with spreadsheets and binders, but have all of that information in one place. Look at the schools that you're building onto your list. Look at the things that they're requiring. Know their deadlines. Having all that information in one place is going to be helpful, and it's going to make your senior year much easier than it would be if it's all scattered about and you have no idea which school has what deadline and who has scholarship deadlines and all of that. Make sure you have it all in one place. Build an ongoing resume from your 9th grade on. It's hard to believe when you're in 9th grade that you will ever forget that you were the lead in the play in September of your 9th grade, but you may forget that and you won't have it on your application and your resume. Important to keep building that and consistently keep that in that binder, and everything you do, add it in there because you will forget. And really challenge yourself academically. Grades are important. Being prepared to get here is important. So it's, in my opinion, one of the best things you can do is really to just challenge yourself academically as much as possible. You don't have to take every AP course that's offered at your high school, but a few of them, if you feel you're up to the challenge, that's going to be important. And this will also kind of mirror this brochure as well. I took all 4 years and kind of broke it out for you to kind of see what the top things you really need to be thinking about. Freshman year or 9th grade, really get to know your college counselor at your high school or your guidance counselor or whoever you go to help for your college search. 9th grade is not too early to get in front of them and just say hello and kind of get to know them because they're going to be really, really important in 12th grade for you. Freshman year is the time to establish study habits. As I mentioned, if you started early, you're going to be able to do much, much better later on with that, so establishing them early on is a good thing. Choose advanced courses, we already talked about. Research books, there's a lot. The internet is huge, so that's a great resource for you, but there are also guidebooks that are important. Don't take everything that every guidebook says is the most the end-all and be-all, but they can help you as you're narrowing down your search. If you're looking at specific programs that a university offers or certain activities that they offer, or athletics or anything like that, sometimes that can really help as well. So starting that in 9th grade will make 12th grade much easier. Sophomore year, you'll take your PSATs. They are important. They are the tests before you take your SATs or your ACT. Kind of can give you an idea of what it's like to take a standardized test like that. It also is if anyone's heard of the National Merit Foundation, which actually awards National Merit Scholarships, that is how they base their awarding when you're a senior on the PSAT that you take in 10th grade. So taking that in the sophomore year is important. Sophomore year is a great time to start getting involved if you haven't already been involved in things like service organizations, leadership opportunities, honor societies, academic clubs, all those sorts of things. Building your resumes for when you go on and do your applications later on, you'll have those items on there as well. Really focusing on academics this sophomore year, though, is very, very important. Junior year is when it starts to get real. You'll be taking the SAT and the ACT. Most juniors will take it in the spring of their junior year. I recommend that you take both. Most students will take, and most people, in fact, will do better in one over the other, but you won't know which one you'll do better in until you take them both. Our brains are wired differently. They test for different things. So taking both is, I think, a great idea. Taking them early so you can retest. As with everything, when you practice something, you will probably do better in it. So you get that first score and you're like, oh, I should have done better. You have the opportunity, as opposed to if you're taking it your senior year for the first time, it can be a problem. Then you kind of run out of time at that point. Attending college fairs is important. It's kind of like, how many of you have gone to a college fair yet? It's like trick-or-treating for adults. You have tables with 40, 50, 100, 200 colleges and universities that have all their brochures out for you. And admission representatives are out there to answer questions. Great, great opportunity. I'm going to tell you something that's coming up this Sunday, but we have it every year in Orlando. My professional association is called NACAC. It's the National Association for College Admissions Counseling. It's what rules our ethics and behavior in the profession. They offer national college fairs around the country, and there's one here in Orlando. It happens to be coming up this Sunday, but we have it every year in October. It's going to be at the Convention Center, and at that point, about 175 to 200 colleges and universities will come to town, and you'll be able to get all information on all of them. So it's a great opportunity if you're available Sunday to go, but then again, keep it in mind, they'll have it next October as well. It's typically always at the Convention Center. Establishing relationships with colleges by requesting material. You can do that at college fairs when you fill out their cards or they scan you with your information. That's always important because we like to know that you're interested in us. If you're on our mailing list and we're sending you information, we want to make sure to get you all the information that you need to make a really good choice, so that's important. Visiting college campuses, also important. A fit is a word you will hear a lot in the college admissions process, that we are looking for a good fit. And you are looking for a good fit, so it has to go both ways. We are looking to fit your needs, and you're looking to fit ours and to fit into the environment. So a good fit's important. It's when you visit a campus and you walk around and you say, I can see myself being here for the next 4 years. I could see myself living here. I like the students that are here. I get a good feeling. I think personally, most people will get a feeling in their gut when they're on a campus that is really someplace that they can be at home. And that's important to do, and you can't do that unless you go and visit. You can look at all the brochures in the world, but after you get through about 10 of them, we all sort of look the same. So visiting is important. Senior year is also important for you to apply for financial aid, because financial aid is, I did not flip that yet. There we go, senior year. Submitting college applications in the fall is also going to be important. Notification dates are usually in the spring. So rolling admission, we open our application end of July, beginning of August. Other institutions usually about the same time. They may actually have a deadline that's usually kind of November 1st is a big one. So applying in the fall of the senior year is important. Retaking the SAT or the ACT, that, like I mentioned before, always an opportunity to do it. If you've already started in the junior year, you can always do that in the senior year as well. Applying for financial aid, the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid, is opened on October 1st. If you had older children or maybe yourself, you might remember that January 1 date. 2 years ago, we moved it back to October. So October 1st of your senior year is the time to apply for federal financial aid for the following year. So I know it's a little bit confusing, but keep in mind that October 1st date. And then May 1st is the date that we in college admissions say it is the day to make the decision. No institution can make you make a decision earlier than May 1st. That's your commitment day. We want you to have all of the information available. We want you to have your financial aid packages. We want you to have all of that information when you choose what school you want to go to. Have your housing, everything done. May 1st is the day that we have set, the colleges and universities around the country is when you deposit. And that's when you choose an institution. And that's where you say, this is where I'm going to go and this is where I'm committing to going. We admit students, like I mentioned, back in September. Those students that were admitted in September still have till May 1st. So don't let anybody tell you you have to make a decision earlier. You have until that date. After May 1st, an institution can then take that admission offer away and perhaps give it to somebody else who's on their waiting list. So you don't wait until after May 1st, but know that you have until May 1st to do that. Applying for admission, some simple, hopefully simple. Developing a plan and a timeline, we covered that already. Really important to know that you have a plan ahead. You're not thinking about this your senior year. Just talking with your college counselors, again, we discussed that, that's important. Exploring the colleges and visiting campuses, finding that fit, finding that gut feeling that this is someplace I could see myself. Understanding what every college that you're interested in is looking for an applicant, knowing what their mid-ranges are. Ask when you go on campus or if you call them or email them, ask what their mid-ranges are. I always stay away from averages just because mid-ranges are so important, I think. It's the mid-50%. So mid-50% of the students that were admitted fell in that range. Asking for an average is just one number. So mid-ranges, I think, are a great idea. Put your best foot forward on your college applications. Just again, back to the technology age. The letter R and the letter U are not the word R or U. You would be amazed how people text in a college application. That's not the time to text. Write them out. Spell check. Definitely spell check, but remember when you spell check, if it's a word, even if it's not the word you thought, it would say it's correct. So proofread, proofread, proofread. And my favorite, and one that I tell every group that I ever stand in front of, and I hope you remember a lot of things that when I talked about today, but if you remember nothing else, when you're writing your college application essays, we know that you may be recycling them and using them for a number of different applications. That's okay, we're not offended. We don't expect you to write 20 application essays. However, when you're writing that application and you're filling it all out and you're writing the essay, I have seen more times than I can count, reading an essay that says, I can't wait to come to my institution, they love it here, they think it's just the most wonderful place in the world, and then they end it by saying, and I cannot wait until I am a student at the University of Michigan. Doesn't do my heart good. Proofread it, change the school name. In the essay. We know that you're not just applying to one school, and if you do apply just to one school, I'm scared. So don't do that. Apply to more than one, but definitely proofread and put your best foot forward. You don't want an admissions committee to be sitting there reading it and getting to the end and being like, they don't really want to come here. So that's important. Be certain to have the application looked at by extra eyes, whether that be an English teacher, whether that be a parent, whether that be a older sibling. Extra eyes are always a good thing. This is what you're using to get into the school of your choice, so it's really important for you to definitely have the best view as you're giving it to the admissions committee. Treat every application like it's your first choice. That, I think, is kind of self-explanatory. If someone only does the bare minimums on my application, I know that I'm probably not their first choice. So that's not an impression that you want to give people. Meet all the deadlines. Missing a deadline, especially a November 1st deadline for many schools, even by one day, they won't accept the application. There's no calling and saying, I forgot to do this or I didn't do this. Your deadline was November 1st and you needed to do that. Don't start trying to submit that at 11:47 at night. You don't want to be that person going, but my internet went down. A lot of times they'll say, and that's unfortunate, you should have done this 3 weeks ago. Be careful about taking advice from unofficial sources. The internet is great. It's a wonderful thing. However, you can get some information that may not be accurate. I do not belong to certain groups on maybe Facebook or College Confidential or things like that, but I do explore them every once in a while, and I'm always really angry when people are giving advice that's very wrong. So don't take advice from sources you don't know as the only source that you're doing. If you say, what's the deadline for UCF? Call UCF. Don't take it off the internet from someone, because someone may be like, you can apply on March 3rd. That's not true. So just be careful with that. Don't make assumptions. A lot of times people will look at a school because, or not look at a school because they know someone who went there that didn't like it, or their neighbors didn't like it, or their cousin had a bad experience. That's not may not be for them, but it can be the perfect school for you. So no school is for everyone. I think UCF is for just about everyone, but there's some people who it's not going to be for, and that's okay. That's not a problem. Don't think that you have to go to a specific school. There's so many options out there. And the last piece of advice I made bigger, because I think it's probably one of the more important. Take the process seriously, but keep things in perspective. Every student in this room that wants to go to college and is committed to doing well in college is going to be able to go to college. You're going to find the right place. If you say I can only go to this one school, you'd be surprised. There's going to be other good fits for you as well. So keep it in perspective. Parents, I know a lot of times we have conversations with students, and they get into the junior year, and every conversation is going to be about college. Try not to do that. Try to maybe make it a once-a-week kind of conversation, or a little bit less than that, because you don't want to be stressed for the 2 years, and it's going to be you that's stressed, it's going to be your student that's stressed, and that is not going to be healthy for anybody. This is going to be a challenging process through the college search process, but it shouldn't make you go crazy. It should be fun at some point as well, because it's definitely fun is part of it. Of course, I had to add some stuff about UCF. That's what I do. The UCF application process and our review process, what we're looking for, is very similar to what I've already talked about. We are considering your transcripts, the rigor of your courses. We're taking your overall GPA into consideration. We're looking at test scores. We're looking at the essay. We want you to tell your story. We say that an application is complete if it has the application fee, transcript, and test scores. Essay, we say, is highly recommended, and in my opinion, if someone says something is highly recommended, that means you do it. Yes. Letters of recommendation are optional, and they truly are optional. Many students will not do letters of recommendation for us, and that is okay. If you want to, you certainly can, and we will consider it, but it's not something that that every student needs to do. So feel free to not submit those, but an essay is very important. Co-curricular involvement, I think I covered that pretty well, in the previous slides. It's really the quality, not the quantity. So don't feel you have to put I was a member of 72 different organizations in high school, because there are 24 hours in a day, and we know that you're not involved in 72 different things. If you only have one thing that you're really passionate about, maybe you love to write and you write for the school paper, and that's really how you spend most of your time outside of school, that's fine. That's not something, you don't need to go join 7 other clubs just to say I was in a lot of things. So it's definitely quality versus quantity. UCF, we receive about 35,000 applications each year for the freshman class, so it is competitive. These are our averages, but again, these are just averages. I don't want them the mid-ranges is what I want you to focus on. And the mid-ranges for here, and I put them on the averages because averages would be like, oh wow, that's a huge number. But the mid-ranges are a lot different. The mid-ranges for the GPA for our institution is between a 3.7 and a 4.3. So 50% of the class falls into that range. So that 4.0 is there, but there's also a range. The SAT, our mid-range is between a 1280 and a 1390. Again, a big range. And our ACT the average is a 28, but our mid-range is between a 26 and a 30. So that kind of gives you a feel of what the middle of the class looks like. We have a program that I won't talk too much about, but our Top 10 Nights program is a guaranteed admission program that we've established about 5 years ago here at UCF. Basically, we wanted to give students the opportunity, because we know some students don't test well but have done extremely well in high school. They're in the top 10% of their class. However, they may not have the test scores that they would like to have. So the Top 10 Nights basically will guarantee admission for one of our 3 terms that you meet these qualifications. So the test scores, as you can see, are a little bit lower. You do have to be in the top 10% of your class. If your school does not rank, which some schools do not, we will look at the recalculated GPA, and it would have to be a 3.9 or higher. So we'd look at one of those things. 4 years of math, which all of you should have, and submit your application and all supporting documentation by January 15th. We will then notify by March 1st. That's just for this particular program. We are enrolling those, so students don't have to apply for this program. This is just if you're looking specifically to be a top 10 night. Comes with some benefits. Guaranteed housing is one of the benefits for this. And the website at the bottom, which is on your sheets, will talk about the fact that you have, there's a whole website that will go over all of the requirements for it. So. And then paying for college, the fun part, I know. Bright Futures, website's up there, it's in your packet. It's really important to make sure you meet all those requirements for Bright Futures. It's a great program here in the state of Florida if you're looking to go to one of the public institutions. It's fabulous. It's funded through the lottery. It definitely has so many benefits for students, and you can get up to 75% or 100% of your tuition and fees paid for. So look at that. Fastweb.com is a website that is a very legitimate one. It lists lots and lots of financial aid opportunities and scholarship opportunities. Be careful when you're on the internet looking for scholarships. My barometer is always, if someone's asking me to pay to find me money, there's probably something wrong with that. Look for the free sites, because if they're asking you to pay to give money, not usually as what you would want them to do. The FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, their website is here. There's also a website that's very tricky that is FAFSA.org or com, and they're going to ask you to pay so that we will help you fill out your free application and you'll pay us. Free application is free. Go through the government site, and any website that's asking you to help you figure out how to do the FAFSA, I would say ignore and go to the government site. And then our website for our Office of Student Financial Assistance is at the bottom as well. We have a lot of opportunities for that. Go on there before you're a student. And you should be going on these sites even before you're a student at whatever institution you're looking for, because you want to see what kind of opportunities are out there for you and what kind of scholarships may be available, and all sorts of things that you may have to apply for prior to getting there. You don't want to get to college and then think, well, now I have to start applying for scholarships, but I could have applied back in the spring and I could already have some money in these merit-based scholarships or need-based scholarships. So, and my time is just about up, but I wanted to open it up for some questions before we stopped. And I saw your hand right there. That's pretty much everything. The question was the $19,000 that I talked about just tuition? It's basically, that's pretty much the cost of attendance for going full-time in the fall and the spring and living on campus. So for Florida residents, our tuition rate right now is $212.43 per credit hour. So we don't have a flat fee. That's something that you also want to look at too if you're looking at schools. Some schools will have a flat fee for tuition, and you can take 12 hours or 15 or 18 hours, but you're still going to have that same rate. Here at UCF and at the state universities here in Florida, we have the opportunity to just have the per credit hour. So if you take 12 hours, you pay for 12 hours. Yep. And we do have a mic because we are recording this. So if anybody else have any questions, and I'll have you speak into the mic so that they'll be able to record for you. He's coming right now.
Relative to the tours, do you sign up for a set time, set date, or how does that work?
Great question. It depends by school. For UCF, you do, and most large institutions, most public universities here in Florida, you would sign up for specific just because we need to determine how many people we have at any given day and time. But usually it's a pretty easy process going on the admissions office website, and there's usually a section that says either visiting or tours or open house or something, and then there's a place to register. Here at UCF, we offer tours Monday through Friday, except for state holidays and federal holidays, at 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. They do tend to fill up early because we live in Orlando. So if you're looking to come during spring break week, so is everybody from Wisconsin. So it's really tough. But if you have specific times that you want to come and you can only come a certain time, definitely the earlier you can register on our site, the better. And I would say that would be for any of the state universities. But we are obviously, Mickey lives here, so we have a lot of people who come over different breaks and in the spring. Any other questions? Oh, yes.
What are the admission guidelines for the Burnett Honors College?
Excellent. The Burnett Honors College is amazing opportunity for students that are looking for academic acceleration. It's about 1,700 students, if you're not familiar with the Burnett Honors College. And I like to say that it's like having a liberal arts experience within, at a small private institution within a large research institution. So you have the benefits of both. They have a separate application process that does not go through admissions. Students would need to be admitted to the university, and then they can apply for the Burnett Honors College. Because I don't read those files, I know there's the requirements are, their averages are around a 1,400 or so SAT, around a 4.3, 4.4 GPA, and then their ACT is about a 32. Again, though, those aren't cutoffs, so it's important to know that they have students that are above and below those numbers. So, but it is a process you would have to go through. Again, important to apply in the fall of the senior year because then you can apply for honors. Usually their first deadline is sometime in January. They make those decisions, and then their final deadline is in March. And those, if you're looking for scholarship money, they usually have to be in that first round that apply by that January date. They still will admit some students after into March, but usually their merit scholarships have been depleted at that point. So, and there's about 500 freshmen will enter each year into the Burnett Honors College. Great opportunity if you're looking at it. I would highly encourage you to go to their website, which is honors.ucf.edu.
How are universities looking at AP Capstone?
Great question. AP Capstone is a program, briefly, it's an extensive program, so I won't go through all of it, but AP Capstone is through the College Board, and it's a program that students can take. I believe it's about 4 or 5 years at this point that they've had AP Capstone and AP Research. We do have certain courses that we can count in our recalculated GPA. The state of Florida does not count that as part of the academic core, but it is something that we look and is definitely a check in the positive side when we're looking at a student's application because we know how rigorous that course is. There are only certain courses that we can consider as core, and that's determined by the Board of Governors. It's not determined by each individual institution. And at this point, that could change. So if you have younger students, that answer may be different in 3-4 years. They may then move that into core. But right now, it's not. But we see those courses on the transcript, and we definitely give a student a check mark on that because we know how hard those courses are and how rigorous, and they'll help the student when they're here at our campus. Any other?
Just a quick question.
Thank you.
For AP classes, just in general, what would be the score on the final exam that would accept them for credit?
Yep. Usually it's about a 3, 4, or 5. The requirement is a 3, 4, or 5. There are some courses that, depending on the major, the credit will come in if you have a 3 or a 4, but they may say you need a 5 on the exam to meet the credit for their specific. For example, in engineering, there are certain courses that you have to have a 5 on. If you have a 3 or 4, you'll get credit, so that'll come into your file as credit, but they won't give you credit for that specific course because you don't have a 5. If you go to our catalog, it's all listed in a chart form. So if you just typed in under catalog exam credit, or AP credit, you'll get the chart, and it'll go each test and what we give. And is the recalculated score you're talking about weighted? Yes, the course itself will get the weight. So if you're in AP Calculus, you get the full point of the weight for that. And then if you come in, we usually will get, when you take the exam in May, we'll get them typically in July. And then, so we're not looking at it during the admissions piece, we're looking at the course that you've taken. So we're giving you the weight for the course. And then if you have a 3, 4, or 5, you'll get college credit for it. Yes.
College fair here 3 years ago. Would it be another one in the campus, or they're all going to be held in Orange Convention Center?
It moved to the convention center. It's probably attended the one, the NACAC fair, and that actually moved to the convention center for space. The arena was only so big, and we had more and more colleges want to participate. So it's the same fair, though.
Once you've applied, about how long should you expect before you might hear back?
Great question. Typically, once everything is in, we're enrolling admissions, so once everything is in, 2 to 3 weeks. What that usually will mean is that in 2 to 3 weeks, it'll be reviewed. Because we're enrolling and we have the opportunity to allow students the opportunity to increase their competitiveness in the applicant pool, if they apply in, say, September, and maybe those test scores aren't quite there, or maybe the GPA isn't quite there, we can then, after 2 to 3 weeks, say, get your first semester grades in, retest, you still have plenty of time, and that can increase their competitiveness in the applicant pool. So that's one of the great benefits of rolling admission. We have the choice to do that. But if we can admit, we admit right away. Typically, we will not offer admission to a student that early because they do have a chance to increase their competitiveness. Yes?
With the number of students that you all admit, is it guaranteed housing for freshmen?
Unfortunately, no. We do have the guarantee for housing if it's a top 10 night and they apply for housing by May 1st, they're guaranteed housing. Otherwise, it's a system where we open up in fact, we just are opening it up for this upcoming year in October, so that we will start having students apply for the following year. It's something that if you apply in a relatively early manner, you'll be able to get housing the freshman year. We reserve typically about 70% of our housing for incoming freshmen because freshmen need that time to get acclimated to the campus, to get engaged, and that's why we want as many freshmen to live on campus as possible. Students that are applying for housing in March and April, that can be more of a problem, but if you apply in the fall, early spring, typically you'll get housing. Any other questions? Oh, I see a couple. Probably have time for 2 more.
What is the approximate size of the freshman class, and what percentage of those kids actually graduate with their cohort?
Great question. The freshman class, we have 3 semesters that we have entering students. So summer, fall, and spring, we have freshmen coming and transfers, but we have freshmen coming in for all of that. Our class is between 6,900, 6,905. Typically every year it fluctuates depending on the year, but that's our summer, fall cohort. Then we usually have about 400 additional that will come in the spring term. So that will make up the whole class. And your second question was graduation rate? Yes. Our 6-year graduation rate is 70%. We'll graduate with a UCF degree within 6 years of the term they started. So we have a commitment here at UCF. We really want students to graduate in 4 years, and we know that can be difficult. If you went to college, for parents, back when I went to college, you took 15 hours and you took them summer and fall, and you got to your 120 credit hours, and you graduated in 4 years. Now, most students will take 12 hours, and if you do the math, 12 hours times 8 semesters will not bring you up to 120 hours for your graduation. But there's reasons for that. Students do internships. Students take a semester off to build their resume. They may not take a summer course. So there's a lot of different reasons. So that's why we calculated on 6 years. Most of our students will graduate a little over 4, but we have a commitment that we want more students to do the 4 because it saves money for them. And definitely it's something that we want them to come in, but we also want them to go out and become alums like all of you. Probably one more, because we don't want you to have to get out of here at midnight.
Is there a benefit to take dual enrollment classes through SSC or another college when you're going through admission?
It definitely can be. Dual enrollment is, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, it's when you take courses that will count towards your high school diploma and will give you college credit. And typically you do it at one of the state colleges, Valencia, Seminole, Lake Sumter, one of those. Great program. Definitely has benefits in the college admissions process because you're getting hours already before you even start. You have college credit coming in. Also, it's one of those things that we will look at, and we give that extra point so that when you're applying to colleges, it gives you the extra added benefit of having accelerated courses, and then you have, your grade goes up basically a full grade. It's a 1-point weight. The caveat I give, and it's not a negative in any way, just make sure that the students understand that they are starting their college career the day they step foot into a dual enrollment course, whether that be in 10th grade, whether that be in 11th, 12th, that is when they are starting that. So their GPA will follow them. Even if they took the class in 10th grade and they get a C, they're coming in with a 2.0 GPA. GPAs are harder to bring up than bring down. They're very easy to bring down. So a lot of students will say, well, I took that, I didn't take it seriously, I'm serious now, I just want to forget that. Unfortunately, you can't forget it. It follows you, it goes with you. Your transcript is your transcript. So make sure that you're ready for that and make sure that you understand the implications of it, but it's a great, great way to get accelerated credit and to be more prepared to come onto the college campus. So I highly recommend it. Just students need to understand that their college career starts at that point. I think we are just at 8:01. I came in exactly when I was supposed to. So thank you all. I hope that it was helpful. I hope that you remember at least a few things that may be beneficial down the road. My email address is at the bottom of the slide, and it's also in your handouts. If you have questions, please feel free to email me. I'd be happy to answer them for you. If they're about UCF, great. If they're not, that's okay too. I'm happy to help because I know the search process can be some of the more trying times. So thank you for coming, and I hope you all have a stress-free college search.